Dr. Lyons, the discussion earlier was about if you could only level the playing field. What would happen if any of the supports currently in place for renewables, as well as all the stuff that's been embedded in the code for fossil fuels, if that was eliminated, where would it put our current nuclear fleet in terms of economic competitiveness if there were no props there for other forms of electric generation? Roughly, I mean, where do you think it would be?
Senator Braun, I can't give you a precise answer to that question. It certainly would be a substantial step towards helping the economic situation of the existing fleet. When there have been evaluations, for example, of the profitability of our existing fleet of reactors, of course it differs plant to plant, and one of those evaluations was done by the Union of Concerned Scientists. But an interesting point in those evaluations is that it's a relatively small margin. Typically, if I'm remembering correctly, about $5 a megawatt hour that separates profitability from non-profitability in the existing fleet. So the suggestions you make, I believe, would be positive in that direction. I can't give you a precise answer. I could certainly suggest groups that could give you a precise answer.
What percentage is 5 megawatts on, in other words, what would happen if, say, we just lightened regulation in general without, going more deeply into like the investment tax credits and other things that are more significant? I mean, is that you say only 5 megawatts, what is that percentage-wise?
$5 per megawatt.
$5 per megawatt, yes.
Jeez. If I'm doing the numbers correctly in my head, sir, that is about a quarter or so of the average price. The average price now for nuclear power generation cost is 3.2 cents per kilowatt hour. I'd simply have to stop and do all this in my head. I think it's about 1/6 of that would be the
so close enough to where it could
proposed.
become economically viable. Good enough. Thank you there. Mr. Willard, when it comes to advanced nuclear technology, and I think there was discussion earlier about the instrumentation going to a digital format, which I believe Purdue University just took across the finish line. Is that true? I think of the 24 or 5 universities that were working on it, that I think that did occur. The fact that it would not be heralded out there tells me a little bit about the profile of where advanced nuclear technology is. But when it comes to that modality, is it the silver bullet when it comes to climate change considerations? And can we would it be a replacement for the current nuclear fleet or in addition to it? Because the current nuclear fleet looks like it's slowly going out of business. And it looks like if we're going to have nuclear around with all its attributes, it would have to be through the small modular reactor.
I guess. Is this for Dr.?
It's for Admiral Willard.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. And this might be better answered by Dr. Lyons. The transition of technologies to digital, the transition of technologies to small modular reactor, and the transition to future reactor designs are all intended to provide increased efficiency and productiveness in the way that our nuclear fleet would operate, as well as increased safety, passive safety capabilities, and it would take advantage of our most modern digital technologies. We're all invested in that, more or less, as we make the transition to advanced reactor designs over time. Currently, our fleet and its licenses without a next license extension has a lifespan that ranges to about 2055. With an additional license extension, that would be 2075 for some percentage of our future. And this fleet was built in 25 years. So to your point, I mean, there's some urgency in recapitalizing our nuclear industry. given the timelines that we're on. And the new technologies are intended to make it more operational, more passively safe, and much more efficient in terms of its production. So I think that when you say silver bullet, not sure that I would coin that term for this, but certainly the new designs will take us to a next generation of energy production in this very important baseline of
Thank you.
clean energy.
Dr. Lyman, very quickly, advanced nuclear technology, small reactors, does that pass the safety test in terms of being something we could scale and do sustainably in your mind?
Well, it is possible if, with proper oversight and regulation, that a smaller nuclear reactor could have better safety features than a larger reactor. But my concern is that too much credit is being taken for these inherent advantages, leading to exemptions or relaxing standards in other areas before it's warranted. And it's important to remember, these reactors are still on paper. And until they've actually been operated for some time and you have confidence in that operation, there's so-called risk informing is something that has to be done very carefully because you don't have enough information. So it could be if they have to be deployed very carefully and only incrementally over time would you get the confidence to actually perhaps reduce the level of regulation.
Thank you. Senator Van Hollen.